Guess all it takes is to lose a record 121 games for the owner to realize how behind the times he was. Let's discuss Jerry Reinsdorf's statement on this terrible season next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the FanSided Network. Also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, this terrible season is finally over, and the owner issued a statement about it. I want to discuss him actually admitting how behind the times this franchise was and how that aided in this being a record-setting season for defeats. Then, with the season being over, should we never speak of it again? Better yet, with 41 wins, does this mean the Sox are not the worst team of all time? And finally, let's discuss if playing decent baseball in September provides hope for a better 2025 season. And you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so Jerry Reinsdorf will not get in front of the microphone and field questions on how the season went. Instead, he issued a statement, and quite frankly, I'm fine with him not taking questions because all it would do is give him a chance to make some ridiculous comments about David Eckstein once again being his favorite player and seeing if he could resurrect Branch Rickey to run the team and Leo DeRocher to manage it. So I'm fine that he is not going to get in front of the microphone and actually field questions. But his statement does hint that he allowed the club to get behind the times, and in turn, that allowed the team to lose 121 games this year. Again, the Sox broke the record on Friday night in Detroit in front of the manager, AJ Hinch, who should be the manager of the White Sox, and it was called by the exiled television play-by-play announcer, Jason Benetti. That actually happened. So, Jerry obviously issues a statement yesterday during the fourth quarter of the Bears game, and while it misses a clear apology, I'm just tired of hearing how much he loves baseball and how the losses hurt, how the losses just hurt him so much because the optics says he's more concerned with the bottom line. I want to get into his statement. I'm going to go by paragraph along with my reaction to each segment of his statement here. So here's how it starts out. By all measures, our on-field performance this season was a failure. As a leader of this organization, that is my ultimate responsibility. There are no excuses. All right, time out here. No apology after there's no excuses. You should say, I apologize. I'm sorry. And here's a refund for all those who went to the games that we lost at home. Thank you for taking some accountability. But you would think after no excuses, I'm sorry for letting you down would have been added. Heck, add I'm sorry I failed you for all but one season of the 43 years that I've owned this team. How about you put that into your statement? Anyways, here's where, continuing. I want to thank you for continuing to support the team throughout what was an embarrassing season. You all deserve better. The season's performance was completely unacceptable, and the varying reactions and emotions from our fan base are completely understandable. All right. Any reactions are understandable. Okay, So why was security always chasing down sell the team signs or asking people wearing sell the team shirts to cover them up? If it's understandable and relatable, you should have no problem with people hanging signs that say sell the team. We should be able to walk into Guaranteed Rate Field with shirts that say, sell the team. We should be able to chant, sell the team, because that's what you should be doing. And again, there would be a perfect opportunity to actually issue an apology in that paragraph since you didn't do it in your opening paragraph. And he does realize he's blamed the fans more than a few times in the past for not coming out and hurting his bottom line. So it's kind of hard to accept his appreciation of support. But here's where he hints that his allowance of letting the team get behind the times helped cause this horrific season. While embracing new ideas and outside perspectives, we will do everything we can to fix this for 2025 and the future. This will include further development of players on our current roster, development within our system, evaluating the trade and free agent markets to improve our ball club, and new leadership for our analytics department, allowing us to elevate to elevate and improve every process within our organization with a focus for competing for championships. In fact, change has already been happening in our baseball operations group throughout this past year. When named general manager in 2023, Chris Getz and his staff immediately began conducting a top-to-bottom evaluation of our existing operations. Chris is rebuilding the foundation of our baseball operations department with key personnel changes already happening in player development, international scouting, professional scouting, and analytics. Some of these changes will be apparent quickly, while others will need time to produce the results we all want to see at the major league level. All right, so as Rob Hart of WBBM tweeted out, this sounds like Jerry will finally agree to watch Moneyball. That's kind of what it sounds like. He's actually maybe going to pick up the book or rent the movie and kind of see, oh, this is how it works. But here's the thing. When you hear Jerry talking about these changes, first of all, it just shows once again how he botched the hiring of a new GM and clung just way too long to this outdated thinking. You know, he promoted Chris Getz with the thinking that Chris can make the transactions that turn things around very quickly. He knows the franchise. He knows everything. He didn't need to do, like, that was the thing. We were sold on him becoming the GM because he knew the organization so well. Why does all of a sudden he need to do a top-down evaluation of the franchise? He knew it so well. He should have been able to walk in day one, make all the transactions, make all the trades, make all the free agent signings, get things turned around. He should have been able to fire Marco Patti. Oh, wait, he probably underestimated everything, spoke sweet nothings to Tony La Russa and to Jerry to get the job, and then realized, oh, you got to do this, this, and this, and wow, we are this far behind the times. Maybe I should do a top down. But Jerry being so insular in his thinking and being, as reported, and being so outdated in his ways led to this 121 losses. It was on the, again, Densey scroll size list of reasons. And all this does is acknowledge that Getz was able to get through to Jerry that his old way was not working. So I guess the one thing we can give Chris Getz credit was he might have been finally the person that said, Jerry, this does not work. It's not 1992. Maybe he gave him a calendar and said, look, it's 2024 and this is how teams operate. But he's suddenly pivoting. Jerry's suddenly pivoting to asking for patience when it was he who was wanting things to be turned around quickly. Had he at least had a better process and decided, you know what, I feel comfortable with Chris Getz as the general manager, fine. It'd be a hard pill to swallow, but you could at least say it's Jerry's team. He at least went out and interviewed a few candidates, get some information on how other teams run things, and gave some notes to Chris. But he didn't. He was so insular. He was like, Chris is my guy. He's going to get things turned around quickly. And I think everybody realized, oh my gosh, it cannot be done. Not with the terrible international scouting, not with the infrastructure that they have in place, not with the fact that, hey, when you use numbers and data, you can actually build a roster that wins, say, 60 games. I don't know. And it's sad that we have to be like, come on, please win 60 games next year. Anyway, back to the statement. Our organization's most important decision in the coming months is to evaluate and identify a new manager and leadership voice for this organization. Chris is well underway with his search. He has identified the key attributes and preferences for our next manager and has already begun an exhaustive search with a wide range of candidates to lead the White Sox in the clubhouse and dugout. Now, I would have liked to have also, Jerry said, this is Chris's call. And all Jerry's going to do is authorize how much money the manager will make. That's it. That would have made me feel a little bit more comfortable. Again, not saying I trust Chris Getz. I don't think he can meet the moment. He has shown so far that he cannot meet these pivotal moments. But if he's supposed to be the only decision maker, with the final authority in the franchise, you got to have that in your statement. He will make the decision, and all I will do is bless it. Again, you have to make sure that we know that you're not going to hijack the process, Jerry, as you did in 2021. And also that Tony La Russa will have no say in this. He's not going to be involved in any way unless it is like, hey, we got to get him in the room to close on Skip Schumacher because this is the guy that we've identified as our top manager candidate. All right, here's the part of the statement that should have been left out, or at least parts. Even in the worst of seasons, where at times it felt like nothing was going right, there were bright spots that provided reasons for optimism about our future. The overall health of our organization is improving. Our minor league rankings show this growth. The Class AA Birmingham Barons won the Southern League title, while Class A Kannapolis reached the finals of the Carolina League, and our organization has built an impressive future pool of very talented prospects. I have no problem saying, hey, we've got some talented prospects, because you got to give some hope here. But stop citing the Barons and Kannapolis winning, okay? Minor league teams winning do not matter. It's the players' performance, the individual players. They matter. Yes, it's nice to have, them have a winning attitude and, understand how to win. But winning at the major league level is much different than winning at the minor league level, especially at low A ball, where about a third of those players are never even going to get to double A. And Getz, he was the one, he pointed that during when the Sox were losing. Look at our minor league teams. They're winning. They don't matter, okay, because of the context, especially at low A ball. Great. You beat some fringe prospects. Okay, back to the statement. Whether said out loud or written in a statement, words are easy. I understand we need to show our progress through action, and I commit to you that everyone associated with the White Sox is focused on returning this organization to the level of success we all expect and desire. Except the GM has already announced payroll is going to be cut. They're not really going to spend a lot of money on free agency, and Garrett Crochet is probably going to be traded. Now I'm starting to see why Jerry is pivoting to patience, because it's cheaper. And he ends the statement, above everything else, I'm a fan of baseball, of Chicago, and of the White Sox. Every loss of the season, every blown save, every defensive miscue, every shutout, every sweep hurt. It was a long, painful season for us all. We recognize on a daily basis that it is our responsibility to earn your trust, attention, time, and support. We've got to take that approach daily as we put the work in this offseason to be better. We owe it to each and every one of you. All right, so first of all, my biggest takeaway is this felt like a PR firm wrote it, and Jerry just said, looks good to me. Because every loss hurt, huh? Then why was no one held accountable until mid-August when Pedro Grifol was finally fired as manager? There was hardly any accountability at all this season. That was a big reason why the season just completely got out of control. Every loss hurt. Why was this team still playing bad veterans with little to no trade value through the bulk of the season? You should have ordered the youth movement, much like you did in 1997 when the team was 3.5 games out of a playoff race in July. You should have ordered a youth movement in May. You should have said, why is Dominic Fletcher down in AAA so Tommy Pham can play more when his trade value is going to be just the same? Why is Andrew Benintendi still batting third or fourth when he has the worst OPS in baseball? Why was this stuff going on? Why were these bad replacement level or below replacement level veterans still allowed to play a ton when it should have been, we got to shift to the young guys. We got to shift to the kids. At least that would have softened the blow of this losing, because you were trying to get an idea of who is our future. Instead, we kept losing with at or below replacement level players that were veterans. Why did this GM suddenly disappear to focus on the draft when the season was really spiraling out of control, as reported? A good GM can walk and chew gum at the same time. You had plenty of young arms showing promise that you could have been promoted to help out the bullpen that blew 46 leads. You could have promoted some of those guys earlier, but no, you had to focus on the draft and leave a manager who should have been held accountable when on a 3-22 start hanging in the wind. So stop saying you owe it to us, Jerry. You've made it clear you are interested in the bottom line and doing things your way. How about just say, I actually owe you not doing things my way, and we're going to modernize the way we do things around here. And I'm committed to that going forward. That would have just been nicer to see. An apology and just an admission that I'm getting out of the way. I'm going to let the adults in the room run things. And Tony La Russa is not involved with the organization anymore. That would have been a better statement. Well, anyways, this season is finally over. Should we dare not speak of it again? Let's discuss that next on Locked On White Sox. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And I always say FanDuel is great for props, parlays, and futures. So, for example, tonight at plus 948, you could win $94.84 if you put $10 on Jared Goff throwing 2 or more TDs, Amon-Ra St. Brown getting 100-plus receiving yards, Geno Smith throwing over 225 yards, and DK Metcalf finishing with 70 or more receiving yards in tonight's Lions and Seahawks game. Also got a big doubleheader today between the Mets and Braves. They have some good lines to make some money on, especially for props for a player to hit a home run. Plus 470 for Francisco Lindor to go yard. Went yard yesterday. Pete Alonso's at plus 420, and Marcelo Zuna's at plus 350. And say you think the randomness October will shine upon a small market team like the Milwaukee Brewers or the Kansas City Royals. The Brewers are at plus 1900 to win the World Series. The Royals are at plus 2500. Even the heavy favorites like the Dodgers, they're at plus 350. So $10 on them could yield $35 if they win it all. That's FanDuel.com. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts as Locked On. White Sox is available at places such as Apple and Spotify. Again, I like to think I'm a great audio companion for you. If you're sitting in traffic, if you're stuck on the Kennedy, that will be forever under construction, or you got to rake some leaves this week, after work, or even, this weekend, hey, take me along. So I do actually like White Sox game day host Alyssa Bergamini. But I do think it's a bad look for a team employee to tweet this at Alyssa Bergamini. She tweets this out. The White Sox god said, "I know you guys can only handle 121 losses in a season. We made it, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's never talk about 2024 again until our kids have to read about it in history books." Okay. I'm sure she's venting, and it was an attempt at humor. And, especially since she had to actually watch 81 of the 162 games this season in person. I'm sure she needed a vent, and that's why I'm not going to dump on her personally or be like, some people I saw were like, this is not a take a Sox employee should make. But to kind of say we should never speak of this again, and I've seen this going around now in Sox social media world, is not a good look, especially from the White Sox and White Sox employee or the Sox themselves. The Sox have been getting complimented lately for whoever's taken over their Twitter account, bringing some fun into it, but kind of missed the mark yesterday when they had a graphic of softball with a Men in Black memory eraser. Looking to this, it's kind of a bad attempt at humor or venting with how this franchise has basically broken the trust of the fan base to basically say, let's forget this season. Let's just never talk of it again. We're never going to speak of it again. Am I relieved that this nightmare of a season is over? You darn right I am. But this is not the type of the season to forget, say 2018 or 2017 or 2007 or 1970. No, my dad never spoke of 1970. I get that because it was maybe historic within the franchise, but it wasn't historic where the national media was exposing this franchise for how dysfunctional they were. This 121 losses, also, think about this. Let's just forget about it because, it can't get any worse. This 121 losses came after the Sox already lost 100 games in 2023. Okay? This season was more than just a record-setting misery. It literally broke the mold to when you say, well, things can't get worse, because it did. You can never say now again, honestly, without at least a little bit of saying, well, it can't get any worse. Because, you know what? It could. There's a possibility that 2025 actually could be even worse than this year. Hard to believe, but it could be because they've broken that trust and they've just broken the mold on hitting rock bottom, because I'm still not convinced this team has hit rock bottom. We thought they hit rock bottom in 2023, and then look at this year. And also, I'm seeing the spin and the mental gymnastics of the Sox winning 41 games, somehow minimizing the team breaking the 1962 New York Mets 162 game season losing record. I'm seeing folks point out, well, the 62 Mets only won 40 games. So see, not that bad. They won 41. And if you're in that camp, I beg of you, my brothers in Christ, just stop. Zoom out and look at the context as to why the Sox going 41 and 121 will make the Pal Hose go down as the worst team ever in Major League Baseball history. And there's this guy on the Southside Showdown Facebook page who keeps on being like, the Cleveland Spiders would like to say otherwise. Okay, again, if you're in the literal camp, fine. But come to the context camp. Come to see why the White Sox will always be the worst team ever. Go listen to my show on Friday. Go listen to other past shows. I had Rob Hart on from WBBM, diehard Sox fan, explain it. Brett Ballantini was on Thursday, explained it. Joined the everydayers and realized, yes, at least most of them, that this is going to be the worst team ever in baseball history. And I feel like a broken record, but if you never want to see this type of losing again from your beloved White Sox, you can't have minimization or forgetting it ever happened. Never again, basically, you got to think about it. We got to accept the Sox having the worst team ever labeled because there are no counter arguments to winning 41 games, basically saying, like, I can't go to a Mets fan and be like, well, we won 41 games. They're going to be like, yeah, you lost 121. And also, you weren't a franchise starting from scratch. The White Sox have been in business for 124 years. The 62 Mets, that was their first season. Okay? Also, the Sox played 2 extra games. Because, yes, it was a 162 game season, but the Mets had 2 games where one was declared a tie because I think it was a rain out. The score was tied. So they just canceled it. And another game got rained out, and they're like, well, no worth playing that. So 160 games. The Sox had 2 more games to avoid the record losing. And guess what? They beat it. Okay? Just because they only beat it by 1. Again, 1 by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. Well, so is losing. And the 62 Mets were just, again, playing bad because they started out as a franchise. It was very hard to build, especially in the National League. The 24 White Sox were bad because of plain incompetence and by choice. Okay? The White Sox operated in an era where a computer could probably literally put together a team that wins at least 65 games. It's sad to be like, you want to win at least 65 games, but that's how bad the White Sox were. The Mets did not even have that technology. Okay? Think about it. We still hadn't reached the moon yet in 1962. The only thing I missed too in the previous segment is Jerry can promise us change, but he never acknowledged his specific role in this team rotting. And you and I know his ability to hijack process and common sense, logic is something we're always going to have to worry about while he's still the owner. So that's the other reason why we can't just be like, let's just put this out of our minds forever, because he still owns the team. And as long as he's still on this earth, there's always the threat of him hijacking a process or him just being like, you know what? I don't care if that makes too much sense. I want to do it my way. Mine. And obviously we shouldn't try to relive every single moment of this god-awful season, but at the same time, we can't act like this didn't happen. We can't just be like, flush it. One of the reasons why the Sox were so bad was you had a manager for most of the season saying, well, just got to flush it on to the next one. No, we got to learn from this. There should be an autopsy done. Chris Getz should be looking at, okay, what went, what obviously went completely wrong, go through the list and then be like, all right, can we solve it this year? No. Okay. How do we solve it next year, through the future? There needs to be a big picture look. And also then maybe, is there any short-term solutions available? And obviously, it means setting the standard is that truly hitting rock bottom will never happen again because we're going to set true accountability standards. I'm fine for that. You got to at least set the standard that this can never, ever happen again. And it will use it as motivation to operate like a modern front office. And even though the owner will probably not spend, fine, become a front office like the Tampa Bay Rays, the Milwaukee Brewers, and the Cleveland Guardians. At least that's one way to start earning back the trust of the fans. All right, so the Sox went 5-1 over the last week of the season and 10-15 in September. Should that provide hope things will get better next season? Let's discuss that next on Locked On White Sox. Hey, there might not be playoff baseball in Chicago, but you can make up the drive up I-94 to catch the Milwaukee Brewers in the postseason. Also, you got the Chicago Blackhawks regular season about to start, and it's always a show worth seeing live with Connor Bedard on the ice. And if you want to get tickets at the best price, use the Game Time app. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Pick filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, and always be on the lookout for the Game Time Picks deals, like when they had 50% off tickets for the Dodgers and Diamondbacks game this past Labor Day. That's a heck of a deal to see two good teams go at it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? Game time. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Shout out to all my everydayers who stick with me this long. Really appreciate it. Shout out we got through it. It's over. We're done with this season. You know, we may have to cite it. We don't ever want to forget it. But it's done. And again, I hope you had a good weekend. I went down to Illinois yesterday, visited my dad, who's still in a physical rehab facility after some health issues with his hip, botched hip. He had a hip replacement issue. So I got to watch the Bear game with him. It's kind of fun. So, kind of felt like old times when I was a kid watching the games with him. So hope you, again, had a good weekend there. So I think this season, though, broke me in terms of being optimistic. I try to have an optimistic nature. I mean, yes, back in the day, I used to be more of the pessimistic. And then, you go through life and you're like, okay, could it be that bad? But I think the season finally broke me because I should be happy with a 5-1 finish to the season. And I should be happy that, hey, the Sox won double-digit games in September, especially after I went through, and you and I went through it together, a 7-44 July and August. Again, a 2-month stretch where the Sox won 7 games. So you'd think I'd be super excited that the Sox went 5-1 to end the season, and again went 10-15 in September. And especially after, we went through the season where the Sox had 3 double-digit losing streaks, one worse than the next, and one that tied the AL record and nearly broke an MLB record. But the one lesson I learned from this season is context matters. And the team's September winning is built on a house of cards. Obviously there's some positives that I do want to discuss and that can carry over to the season, but the context makes me very, very cautious because I think it'll point a major decision to go in the wrong direction. And that is Grady Sizemore gets the manager role full time. As I keep saying, Grady is a good plan B, but you cannot go with plan B unless all your plan A options decline the job. You shouldn't be going with your backup plan here. This hiring demands a plan A, and it demands a hiring with the vision that you're going to get a person who's not only going to get you through the rebuild, but also guides you toward winning a championship. And yes, a title seems like going back to the moon at this point, but that has to be the end goal for Chris Getz. Even though I'm not very confident he's capable of meeting each moment to get us there, that has to be the vision. The vision has to be, okay, we've gone from 121 losses. Now we're going to shock the world in a few years and get to the playoffs and win a World Series. It's what the Detroit Tigers did in 2003. They went from 2003 to 2006 to the World Series. 2003, they nearly broke the record. So you got to have that vision. You got to have that goal. And I think one of the things that was set up in the last rebuild for failure was the vision was just, let's collect the talent. We're just going to get all the talent. We're going to get all these good players. We're going to put them together and ask me after the parade is what Rick Hahn basically said. And that's clunky. And I don't want a clunky process. It was, well, Rick Renteria, he's going to get us through the dark days. And the talent players will thrive under him. And once the talent is actualized, then we'll get rolling. But we don't know if Rick Renteria is going to be able to be the manager that can be either a net neutral or a net positive that'll put us over the top. And it turns out he was a net negative. That cost you a playoff series. He literally did. He panicked once Garrett Crochet left game 3 with an injury. That's one of the reasons why you lost to Oakland in 2020. And there was no realization, too, that this owner could hijack hiring the guy to take you to the next level at any time. It was just very clunky. It was just, let's get the players. There's no real process to it, and realizing, okay, once we get the players, what is it going to take to get to the next level? You want a cleaner process this time. In that, yes, you do need to collect the talent, but you need to have a plan on how to cover for the holes when certain talents do not develop or do not develop enough. Maybe they just hit their floor, and their floor is a utility player, or they're injury prone. So you want to have a process that identifies finding a manager that can basically take you all the way through, or at very least can take you to the winning portion and not be a net negative manager. And Grady, I just think, is going to be another go around of Ricky. Plus, I think it ignores, if you're going to give Ricky, Grady the job, you're going to ignore that the 10 and 15 September came mostly against the Oakland A's and the Los Angeles Angels, who were just playing out the season. The Angels in particular were just playing god-awful baseball. I mean, they were White Soxing against the White Sox. And taking 2 of 3 from Detroit ignores that the Sox won on Saturday, mostly because the Tigers played like they were hungover after celebrating clinching a playoff spot on Friday. And they just only sort of showed up yesterday. Now, there is some context, obviously, to provide some hope. Again, I'm trying to be a little optimistic. Sean Burke obviously was outstanding on the mound on Saturday. And obviously in his other 2 starts looked really, really good. You got to like his chances of making the rotation next year and seeing what he can do in a full season. Obviously, baseball will come for him, but you got to really like the stuff that he can bounce back and become a very, very good starting pitcher. Jonathan Cannon, he had a 3.77 ERA in September. Again, his floor should at least be a very good number 4 pitcher, and he could potentially get to a number 3, number 2 pitcher too in your rotation. So you got to like that. And Lenyn Sosa, who I call Godfather 3, it's just when you think you're out on him, he pulls you back in. Showed promise that he could at least be a decent bridge second baseman during this rebuild years. He had a 3.73 average and a 9.64 OPS in September. And he did have his best game of the month against the Baltimore Orioles. So this just isn't empty calories. Brian Ramos hit 3 home runs in his return to the bigs this month. Also showed some passion out there. Zach DeLoach and Dominic Fletcher made cases that they could at least be productive next season. DeLoach more so at the plate, Fletcher more so in the field. Even Andrew Benintendi gave hope that maybe he can still be a productive veteran if he can put together a full season. And Garrett Crochet pitched much better on the innings limit in September than he did in August. And he did indicate he's willing to stick around. He's willing to sign an extension, even though the front office seems dead set on trading him. And Gus Varland, Perlander, Baroa, and Fraser Ellard might be some viable bullpen arms. But the catch is, this still did not yield any value players outside of Crochet. Crochet and Jonathan Cannon and Chris Flexen were the only players, I believe, to have a FWAR either above 2 or at, near 2. And Luis Robert Jr., even though he struggled mightily, was your only position player with a BWAR, I believe, over 1. So you got a lot. You got to still have to make up. While there's a lot of potential and some glimpses, it was mostly just glimpses. It was mostly smoke and mirrors. And I have a feeling that's going to lead the front office into making some poor decisions. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic that starts tomorrow with Sully, who has it covered every single day. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll be back tomorrow to get a post-mortem perspective on the season with 670 The Score's Shane Reardon. Feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding owner Jerry Reinsdorf's statement on how the season went. Never forgetting this terrible year. And was the decent September the Sox had a mirage or a glimpse of hope? You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dubb or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.